Okay, so today I am going to be changing the spring settings on my Bilstein 51s. They're on the lowest setting right now. Probably can't see, but there are 3 settings that you can't see up there. And I'm on the lowest setting. And that was working fine for a while, but took this 3rd gen 4Runner 97 out on the trails this past weekend and noticed the front was scraping. I also just put in new JBA upper control arms, did the lower UC or lower control arm bushings, and so there's a lot of rubbing here. You can see the rubbing. I've already shaved parts of it, but so I need to lift this up a little, and I also need to get alignment afterwards, so thought I'd just do it all at once. So main point today is I'm going to take this spring off without using those scary spring compressors. If you've ever used those are crap. Even with an impact wrench like this, it's scary, especially when you're compressing a lot of preload. And that's why I had to originally set on the lowest setting, just because I didn't like how much I had to compress it. So there's a way to do it without using those. You leave it on your truck, and I'm going to show you. It's pretty easy. I just did my passenger side, took about an hour. Took my time, it was my first time, and it was pretty straightforward. By the way, a lot of people on the forums will say, yeah, it took me 30 minutes, it took me 15 minutes to do some maintenance. And who the hell cares, right? Take your time, do it right, enjoy the process. I don't ever try to rush it. Sometimes it may take me 2 hours to do a project that should only take maybe 40, 50 minutes, according to what people say on the forums. But take your time, do it right. I enjoy the process, I enjoy the learning, and sometimes I'm just looking at my rig while I'm working and just seeing all the different things. So first thing is, obviously, you want to jack up your support here, and this is the driver's side, so I have that jacked up. You want to make sure you have your jack supported on the lower control arm here. And then make sure you have another jack supported the frame on the rear of the opposite side. So it's going diagonal from each other of the 2 jacks, right? So I just did this side, and now I'm gonna film as much as I can by myself, doing it on this side so you can see. First and foremost, remove the sway bar. Just let it hang, obviously, because you need the lower control arm to go downward. Next, I'm gonna take off this outer tie rod. And this requires a 17 millimeter, if you didn't know. And I'm not gonna touch anything else. So I just took the wheel off, sway bar, and I'm going to take off the outer tie rod. And I'll show you how to do it by just using a hammer. I've never done it before. I've seen people do it online, and it's always kind of a scary thing because you don't want to bash it too hard. But I have the Polar, but I thought I'd just try it, and it worked actually really well on that side. So I'm going to do it on this side, and I'll try to film it. All right, so I just loosened the cotter pin, the nut, and this is a 19. I think I said 17 earlier. So I'm leaving the nut on. You can leave it on or off. Taking this little hammer, it's a cheap Harbor Freight hammer, I believe. Nothing special. And the trick is to tap here. Don't tap here, don't tap here, just to tap here. So let's see if this works on this side as well as it did the other side. And there you go. It's sorry, I'm trying to film it. See, it's popped loose, so I'm just gonna unscrew it. and it's off. And that's all it is to it. Yeah, so very easy. You just lightly tap here and that tension should release. Now that I have the lower ball joint, or sorry, this loosened, I'm gonna remove the lower ball joint, the 4 nuts. By the way, I lowered this a little so that there would be downward pressure as I am tapping this piece. So the next step, after removing your 4 lower LBJ bolts, 14 millimeter, is to loosen this. You don't need to take this off at this point. You just loosen it just to make it easier. So mine is a 19, so I'm just going to use my little impact. And that's all you need to do for now. Then it's time to loosen the 3 bolts up here that hold this. I also have about 1.5 inches. I think it's an 1.25 inch spacer. The total length of this is only 3/4, but it gives you about 1.25 inches lift, I think. So I need to remove these first, and they require a 17 millimeter. Now I can remove these with my hand, but I'm gonna leave them here because first thing is to remove the bolt here. I don't know if you can see. The first is to remove this. This is a 19. You need to use something to hold this so that it doesn't spin together. Before you do that, you want to make sure you jack up the lower control arm to push that spring up and compress it. Yeah, so you know you've jacked it up enough and it's ready to come out when you can just spin the nut pretty easily, and this whole thing is just spinning, so you know all the tension and the pressure is relieved. So now you just need to get something to hold that, and what I've been using is just this little crescent wrench. And what I do is I just do this action to both sides. Now that I've loosened it so much, and I can just almost take it off my hand. It's got a lock nut on it, so let's see. that's off. Once that's off, I'll remove these. Alright, so 3 bolts are out, middle bolt is out. Next step is to release the jack and let the whole thing fall downward. And there's still that 19mm nut here, so it's not going to flop down. There you go, whole thing's off. This is also a good time to check your lower ball joint to see if it's got play in it. So I just replaced these about 40,000 miles ago, and they're OEM LBJs, so feel nice and tight. The ones on here originally were also OEM Toyota LBJs, and they probably had over 200,000 miles, and they were fine, but the previous owners didn't take them off-roading, as far as I could tell. One thing I should have done is just to support this a little, because the whole thing's just dangling now. So just to support it a little so it doesn't flop around. Okay, now I've just loosely put it back. I just moved the setting for the Bilstein 51 adjustables up one, put the spring back, and things are just kind of loosely hanging right now. Didn't think there was any point in showing you me just adjusting that, but here is the main thing you want to pay attention to now. So first is putting the shock back, and then just putting this nut and bolt through. It's loose right now, it's just to hold it in. The next step would be I didn't show it on this side, I did the other side, but I had made match marks using just whiteout to line it up so that I know where the holes go for these bolts. I didn't do it on this side. It was pretty easy to match it up, so I am just going to do it right now just by feel. Okay, have the 4 shock bolts in just tightening by hand. Next is to raise the lower control arm so that the middle bolt goes through. So you have to line it up. There's the hole on top, and you just have to, while you're doing it, slowly take a look and make sure it goes through the hole. Okay, so I can feel that the screw has gone through, or the bolt has gone through. And honestly, it just takes a little bit of adjustment, so you can actually just do it with one arm holding the jack. Just push it a little and align it, and now it's in. So there's just a little bit showing, so now I can fully jack it up to where I can tighten from the top. Got a little bit of it coming through. So I'm just gonna get it started so that I can just enough, and then I'll start using. Hopefully I can do this without it getting sprung. Okay. So now you can see the shock body is spinning, so I need to have something to hold on to that. So I'm gonna use that. Okay, so I've gotten everything tightened up here. Torqued it down as much as I'm wanted to torque. And then time to put the outer tie rod back in. So I still have not put in my lower ball joints nuts in. That'll be my last thing. So okay, so I am all done with all the nuts that I need to tighten. The bolts up there, lower, or the ball joints, outer tie rod. The last thing is the sway bar. So I just need to loosen the other side to relieve some pressure and tighten that, and then I'll be able to put the wheel back in. everything put back on. I took this out for just a short drive, went through some bumps, and everything was good. No weird sounds, no clicking, nothing. And so here are my results for the adjustments. This is the before. So driver's side was 6 inches and 3/8. Passenger was 6 1/4. After 7 1/8 and 7, so about 3/4 of an inch. This is moving from the lowest setting of the Bilstein 5100 adjustables to the second setting. And we'll see how this holds up after a while. It'll settle a little, but gain about 3/4 of an inch. As long as it's about 1/2 inch, I'm pretty good. And this is also measuring from here to here. So obviously it's going to be different for other people's rigs.